Hey, guys, if we weren't monsters that were shunned by society and we could actually do what we wanted, what would you guys do?
I mean, if I'm being honest, I'd just be normal, you know?
Yeah, like go to high school.
Maybe get a girlfriend, go to prom.
Yeah, with your riz, not likely.
I just gotta get out of the sewer, man. I mean, I like you guys and all, but I just simply cannot live a happy life knowing that your faces are the last things I'm gonna see before I die.
Well, guess what, guys? It's never gonna happen, so let's just stop talking about it, all right?
Hello and welcome to Comic Book Movie Oblivion, the podcast about future films based on comic books and comic strips that people have stopped talking about. We're your hosts, Jordan and Kumar, that's me.
And me.
This week we are talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem from 2023. We won't be talking about the comics because we talked about the same comics last week.
That's right.
So,
first time in a long time, I think perhaps since Prince Valiant, where we haven't
skipped the comics, yeah.
Where we haven't done a comic for the second week.
Yeah, so I'd say go back and listen to that episode. It's got notoriously like one of our lowest rated episodes on YouTube for some reason.
Fewest views.
Fewest views, yes.
I mean, that doesn't necessarily correlate to lowest rating.
That's true.
Since they got rid of the downvote.
That's true. So anyway, if you want to hear us talk at length about the comic, you can go there. This movie is an origin story, so it kind of is covering the same comics, and that's why we're not talking about it.
Yes.
But let's pause the podcast on this movie.
Yes, I think you should pause the podcast, go watch it, because there's some twists and turns.
Yes,
and
there are some twists and turns.
And it's really good.
Yep. Okay. We'll leave it there. Okay, so 2023, it's just last year. It's a bit of a shift from the 90s movies, let's say. Not necessarily the Michael Bay movies, which we haven't talked about yet.
No.
Because at this stage, Eastman and Laird no longer own any rights to these characters. They've washed their hands of it, let's say.
Really? I didn't know that.
So I think
So we're no longer in the kind of situation that we were talking about last week.
No.
Everything was going through them.
That's
the buck
right.
stopped with them.
That's right.
Well, the Bucks.
Yeah.
But
Lots
now
of bucks,
they've since sold it.
They sold, I think so. One of them sold in around 2000 and one sold... Well, I think Eastman sold his share to Laird in 2000, and then in 2007, Laird sold everything to Viacom.
Right.
Lock, stock.
And 2007 is when the TMNT movie came out, the animated one. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
By the studio that did
So
Astro Boy.
I think they were a bit maybe sick of dealing with it. I mean, if you read the journal interview, which I posted the link to in last week's episode, Eastman talks about how they spent all their time just being sued. Like, they were just dealing with lawyers all day, every day, and it was... And the way he talks about it, Laird was a bit more precious about the property than Eastman was. Eastman was just like, well, it's just this thing and whatever, and wasn't that attached to it in the end, so obviously he was the first to sell. And then Laird held on for longer, yet Eastman is the guy that now is occasionally writing, like, some of those Turtles comics for IDW.
Okay.
So he's still got his fingers in it, but he's not, like, managing it or owning it.
No.
Which, as I said last week, was kind of an almost platonic ideal of comic book creatordom, is to create this thing that makes billions of dollars and then it's all still yours.
Right.
So anyway, so we've got in a sense, I don't know how much real control they had even through the 90s and early 2000s. It was kind of all over the map, but suddenly in 2023 we have a bit of a revival with this movie.
Well, yes, that's true. I mean, it's been going on. I mean, there's been a lot of Turtle stuff, hasn't there? In the last 10 years especially.
Yes,
so
well, there's been at least 5 TV series.
Yeah, there's a lot of TV series.
There was even a live-action series using the turtle suits in the 90s that was like 13 episodes or 20 episodes or something.
Yeah,
which included a lady turtle, Venus de Milo or something.
I didn't know that, but that's very funny.
Would have been a bit like that Dinosaurs TV show, I guess, looking at it. It would have been weird. I've never seen it.
That was a stage show, wasn't it? Out of Our Shells. Right?
Right. Like a Broadway show?
Woefully bad, apparently.
Right. I believe it. Okay, so this movie, so right away I'll say, the first thing that you notice as soon as it starts from second one is the art style.
Yes.
So it's almost done, it looks like, almost like it was carved out of pastel crayons, is what it looks like. It's got a really odd style, which I felt was actually the first time we've had a version of Turtles on screen that, in a sense, was a bit like the visuals of the comic, in that it was very distinct, had an unusual, idiosyncratic style. Like when you
Yes.
read those early comics and they have that very thick, rough inking style.
Yes.
And here we finally got something that's very different because that cartoon was just like, it was just a kid's cartoon. It just looked very generic.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, it was very generic. This one is very stylized.
Yeah.
And I think we don't... It's, as you say, the most stylized adaptation we've had yet.
Yeah.
They've deliberately gone for a visual style that's really unusual.
Yes.
And it's meant to look rough.
Yes, exactly. And I think we would not have had this if it hadn't been for Spider-Verse
Yes.
a couple of years earlier.
Yes.
And I also think if the Lego movie hadn't come out before that, we wouldn't have had that. I mean, there's a progression there, I think.
Yes. I mean, I know this for a fact because I found an interview with the director,
Okay.
Jeff Rowe. This is an article called Why Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Got a Makeover with Brand New CG Animation Style,
Yep.
published in July last year. This has arrived a lot earlier than I expected to be talking about it. So he says, a few years ago, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse happened. That showed that a movie can look like the concept artwork and
Right.
can be critically and financially successful. That opened a lot of doors. And on Turtles, I tried to be even less compromising with the art. We decided we wanted this movie to look exactly like a concept artwork, and we wanted the concept artwork to feel distinctly human and not computer generated. So there's lots of rough lines, like light bulbs will have will have a lot of scribble around them.
Scribble around, yeah.
Hair looks like scribble as well. It's really wiry.
Yeah.
And he goes on to say, and that means sketchy and imperfect and misshapen.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, like square objects are not square. They're like a little bent. They're like
Yes.
some kid drew them with a crayon. Yeah.
exactly, he says, reminiscent of the way you draw when you're a child
Yeah.
or a teenager.
Yeah.
It's part of how they're leaning really strongly in this film into the teenage
Yes.
aspect of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which is absolutely something we're going to come back to.
Yes.
Let me just continue and
Yep.
finish the quotation. When you're a child or a teenager and your passion and enthusiasm for making art hasn't been dimmed by formal art training, it's the kind of drawing you do before you have that voice in your head that says, don't do that, that's not how you draw. He begins this quotation by saying, I think this is interesting because we, quite a few weeks ago when we did Captain Harlock, well, months ago actually,
Yeah.
we talked about the uncanny valley
Yep.
and the kind of dead end that we consider photorealistic computer animation to be artistically. And he begins this quotation by saying, I think for us, artistically, it is a reaction to a 30-year trend in 3D CG animation to push towards photorealism and hyper-realistic lighting and texturing. It's clearly something that he thinks you need to fight against, and
Yeah.
Into the Spider-Verse is sort of opened the door.
Yeah.
So I find that very reassuring.
Yeah.
Especially that this film was successful.
Yes.
As was, obviously, Spider-Verse, which was a huge
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah. And Lego.
Yes.
Before that. So let's talk a bit. Okay, let's go into the plot a little bit. So we start out with a kind of special ops team in a van driving to capture Baxter Stockman,
Yes.
who's a scientist who's creating mutants in his lab. And there's some lady at headquarters that's on the radio to them saying, you know, capture him, capture his mutations, capture the mutagen that he's creating,
Yes.
bring
they
all
want
the
the
stuff.
mutagen, they want the samples.
Yep.
They also want to capture any mutants that he has.
Yes.
Interestingly, they've been equipped with anti-mutant guns.
Yes.
So the film, this is Chekhov's anti-mutant gun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they have these guns, but the lady tells them, so their handler or whoever their boss is over the television tells them that they cannot use them
Right.
because she wants the samples, or either she says it or the captain of the team says it. You can't use your guns
Yeah.
because we need to capture them,
Yeah.
the mutants intact. So they've got guns that will demutantize
Yeah.
mutants, but they can't use them.
So, I want to say right away, this movie is full of plot holes that don't matter.
Yeah, absolutely.
I did not care. And this is right out of the gate. It's like, well, how do you have an anti-mutant gun if you don't know how the mutation works? How do you anti-mutate it? Like,
Yeah.
you don't know what the poison is. What do you know? How do you know what the antidote is
Yeah.
going to be?
I thought that too. How can you demutantize mutants when you can't make mutants to start with? You don't invent the cure before you discover the disease.
Yeah, absolutely. This movie is full of stuff like that.
It absolutely doesn't matter.
Just doesn't matter. I was dazzled the whole time by the visuals. I was too distracted, and this is my second time watching this.
Right.
because I saw it at the cinema. I saw a preview screening, and I was just like, I just couldn't stop looking at it and being amazed by it. So the plot set doesn't add up in the end, and it doesn't matter.
Baxter Stockman, of course, you'll remember who is the guy that made the mouses,
Yes,
the
so
little robots.
they've changed his plot line.
It's more like the cartoon. In the cartoon, he was a scientist
Okay.
who got turned into a fly.
Well, okay, so this is interesting because I didn't know that, but this movie, I think, to jump way ahead, is pulling something from every iteration of Turtles. As far as I can tell, there's bits and pieces from all the movies, the cartoons, the comics, it's all over the place. It's pulling from 40 years, or 39 years at this point, of history.
Good. Well, mate, point it out when you stumble across this.
Okay. So, Baxter is in his lab. He's built one mutant.
Before we go on,
Okay.
you know who plays Baxter?
Oh, Giancarlo Esposito.
Who was also in Monkey Bone.
Monkey Bone. I wonder if he got a third credit.
I'm not sure.
Because I forgot he was in this one. So, okay, so he's at 2. So
Yes,
he's
at
working towards all sorts
He's
of
been in 2. Yes, that's right. And, he's still active, so
Oh, yeah.
in years to come.
He could, absolutely.
So you were saying, sorry.
Yes, so he's there. He's built one, which we learn is a fly, a mutant fly, and he's working on a bunch of siblings, which are in test tubes. He calls them siblings, which is important. I think that's thematically important to this movie. So the SWAT team, the special ops team attacks. There's a big fight in the lab.
Fight with the bug,
the mutant fly attacks and tries to protect Baxter. The mutagen, like a canister of ooze, one of the canisters falls over and leaks into the sewers.
Yeah.
What happened to Baxter?
He gets dragged away.
I
I think he actually maybe dies.
Yes.
Because there's later they drag him away unconscious, but it's implied later on the grown-up fly character says that he died.
Okay.
That they killed him.
Okay. That's a good point. We'll come back to that later anyway.
But he doesn't... I remember watching it, I didn't think he was dead. It just seemed like they dragged him away.
Right.
Maybe there's a possibility he can come back in a future film.
Right. So then we cut to 15 years later. It's always 15 years.
Yep.
Every iteration we've seen so far, it's 15 years later.
Yes.
And we see the turtles, our mutant turtles, on the roof of a building. They're getting ready for a mission. This is the first time we've had teenagers doing the voices.
Yes. All 4... Well, the first time that all 4 turtles are being played by...
Actual teenagers.
Actual teenagers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, visually... The turtles are distinct from one another.
There are 4 different body types.
4 different body types.
Yeah.
That's it. We're not just telling them apart by their the colour of their masks.
Yeah. Or the letters on the belt, which they brought over from the cartoon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But they're very obviously, and this is a strength, I suppose, of the fantastic art and animation. Raphael is quite a large...
He's a big hulking...
He's bulky.
Brawny kind of guy. He's the violent one, right? He's the hothead.
Yes,
he's always been since iteration 1 of the comic.
Donatello is wears glasses and is small.
Yep.
Michelangelo is thin and has braces.
Yes.
And a big kind of head shaped like a melon.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
And Leonardo probably has the most typical kind of phenotype, but stands out because of his typicality when compared to his brothers.
I would also say that they're short, like they were in the comics.
Yes, they are. That's right. They're not 7 feet tall.
They're not 7 feet tall. And I was thinking, because in the Michael Bay ones, they are 7 feet tall.
Yes, they are.
Are those suits or are those CG?
CG.
So why make them 7 feet tall if they're CG? It boggles the mind. We'll talk about that when we do those movies.
Because the teenage thing has always been the least important of the 4.
What about the turtle thing? Turtles aren't... I don't know. Anyway.
The teenage has always been... I think even in Eastman and Laird's original iteration, I think teenage was always the least important of the 4 words. They were always more important that they were mutants...
Hulking mutant.
And ninjas.
7 feet ninja.
Turtles.
Yeah.
And last of all, teenage a distant fourth. Very seldomly are they doing teenage things or having teenage concerns.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. But just in terms of the body types, finally we've got them like the right size, like the comic size.
Absolutely.
Now we find out this mission is actually to steal food.
I love this. So you said it draws on different elements of turtle lore. This is just like the start of the comics and the start of the 1990 film. They are going on their first mission, or on a mission. And it even begins in a slightly different art style to the way it carries on.
Yeah.
when we first see the turtles, they're much more...
It's dark and gritty.
Yes. Yes, they're much more gritty.
Urban and gritty.
Yes, and they have the white eyes the way they did in the original comics.
That's right.
And they're much, as you say, they're dark and gritty, and it's looking like
ninja tights.
It's looking more like the comic.
Yeah.
And then there's kind of like a record scratch.
Yeah.
And then they morph into their goofy forms, and it was Leonardo trying to hype them up for this serious mission, much like the way the original comic began, with presumably Leonardo talking about the mission they've trained all their lives for, and we have to hide from those who would be our allies. So very serious, but they're actually just going to the supermarket.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very clever.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah. So they're still, we're presuming they do this
They've never
all the
been
time.
in a fight. We don't find that out yet, but
That's
they've
right.
never been in a fight.
They've never been in a fight, yeah.
They just use their ninja skills to rob the
So
supermarket.
they steal the food, then they're like, well, let's keep hanging out, because Splinter wants them to come home and be safe at home. They're not allowed out in society, but they're like, let's go see a movie. They go to see a movie, another visual shock. They go to see a movie in the park, it's Ferris Bueller, and we get actual footage. They do this a couple times in this movie, and it's just hit in the face in a good way.
Yes.
When you suddenly get this live action movie footage in the middle of all this pastel craziness that's going on.
Yeah.
And then we learned that their dream is to become, they just want to be normal teens. What if we could go to a high school? They want to be like Ferris Bueller.
Because that's what they're watching, Ferris Bueller's Day Out.
Yeah.
And they just want to go, that's their aspiration. They want to go to high school. They don't want to fight crime.
Yeah.
That's not on the. That's not why they're on this mission.
That's right.
They just want to go to high school.
That's right. That's right.
And they want to be a part of that world.
Yes. So they go home, and we learn Splinter's really like gives him a big talking down
Splinter's
to.
amazing. He's like an overbearing father.
Yeah.
He's played by Jackie Chan.
Jackie Chan. Yeah.
And he's, as I say, he's cracking down on him. He's telling him. He's giving him lectures. He's telling him stories. He's really goofy.
He's really has these says prejudicial things about humans.
Yeah.
And he's always talking about how they're going to milk them, like they're going to capture them and
just
milk them.
comes up over and over.
Yeah.
They're going to milk you.
Yeah. But he's very opposite from the Splinter in the comics, because this Splinter is like, don't go out there. But this Splinter Splinter in the comics is, we can't be friends with humans, but I want you to go out there and kill Shredder.
Yeah.
I want you to go out there and fight those ninjas. I want you to train and fight, beat up this gang in this alley or whatever. This Splinter's like, don't go out there.
Splinter...
Except for your, the grocery missions.
Splinter's always been a father figure for the Turtles,
yes.
I would say. However, he's always been master first and father second.
Yes.
In this film, he is very much father first.
Yes. Now, spoiler, I think one...
We've already spoiled it.
Spoiler in my opinion.
Okay.
I think this movie has a couple of flaws. One of the flaws is I think it goes for kind of ordinary plot moves. Like having the dad, the conflict, this automatic conflict. I don't want you to go out. They're sneaking out at night to hang out with humans. So it just seemed like an obvious choice, I guess.
It is, but I like it. Almost because of that, because it's such a common teen movie trope in this film that above all, I mean, we have Seth Rogen, who's one of the producers and one of the voice actors. He plays Bebop.
Yes. And he co-wrote.
Yes,
he's one of the 5 writers, and Evan Goldberg. Now, these are the gentlemen that wrote Superbad.
Exactly.
So, this is the zone.
Yeah, they have teen movie chops.
Yeah.
And he was as long ago as when I think they first optioned it, years ago, in like 2018 or something like that. Even back then, he was saying, this is going to be a movie about teenagers.
Yes.
This is my jam, and this is going to be the movie that's going to focus on the teenage part of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
I also want to speculate. I don't know how old Seth Rogen is, but I imagine he's about our age.
I know exactly how old he is. He's 41.
Okay, so I think he's a guy that grew up with every iteration of Turtles. I think he's seen them all.
Yes. It really comes through.
I think
especially the toys. This film takes a lot from the toys and has a lot of affection for the toys, particularly. All of these crazy...
Which was the first iteration almost after the comics, because the toys came along. Then like, let's make the cartoon to sell the toys.
Yes. Yeah. Very much the toy line is big inspiration for this, and I can only assume that Evan Goldberg and Seth Rogen had the toys.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
they-
41, absolutely, 100%. Had to pile them in a toy box.
Yes.
Missing the weapons, half of them. Okay, so they come home, Shredder gives them this long speech, and now he tells them their origin. He says, I'm going to tell you the
And they all
origin,
moan.
which is like, oh no, we've heard this 100 times before.
Just because you snuck out, I'm going to tell the extra long version.
Yes, and
It's really funny. He says, there's a great line where he said, after they get mutated, he talks about how horrible life was when he was a rat, how everyone hated him. Then, he fell in the sewers and he found the turtles. They're crawling in the ooze. He gets the, so this is the traditional origin of Splinter, not the cartoon one where he was a man that got turned into a rat. Here he's the rat that turns into a man.
yes.
And he
But
says,
all of the-
because I was older than you, and you were young, when we became mutants, I was old, and you were babies. When we say it like that, it makes perfect
yes,
sense.
yes, it's one of the best lines of the movie, absolutely. I'm going to say, so we learn about he was a rat, and he just happened upon these turtles in the sewer.
Yep.
The turtles were mutating, they touched him, the ooze touched him, he mutated.
Yep.
There's no Japanese ninja stuff
Nope.
in the origin story of Splinter.
That's right. He's
None
not,
of that
he's
stuff.
not the
He's just
pet
a rat.
rat of a ninja master.
But the baby turtles want to go see the outside world. He said one day he's like, okay, let's risk it. He takes the babies out. They're attacked by humans who think they're freaks. He flees into the sewer. He's like, okay, now I need to teach you to protect yourselves from that outside world.
Yes.
So they watch
YouTube.
martial arts videos, like old VHSs, YouTube, old Jackie Chan movies. There are some live action clips in here from, I think, Young Master and maybe like what's Snake and the Eagle Shadow. There's a couple
I'm
at
super
least.
impressed that you recognise the film.
I'm guessing
I call myself
based
a
on
Jackie Chan fan, and I had no idea what movies.
I think that it's my guess. I can't. If I watched the credits closely, I could have probably told you exactly what movies they're from. But we get another live action sequence of these bad VHSs, YouTube videos, these actual Jackie Chan movies, these martial arts. Because we get a bit of a montage here, and all the turtles are training in these weapons. So finally they go out again, and they're just having fun on the roof, just practicing with their weapons. They're supposed to be going in, they're just like, let's hang out here a bit longer and practice with our weapons, have some fun.
Yep.
They're throwing ninja stars at one stage, and one of them goes off the roof and hits this girl
Yep.
on the head, in her helmet, in her scooter helmet. She's
Yes.
about to get on her scooter, and she gets hit in the helmet. They look down at her. She's wearing a yellow jacket.
Aha.
Soon we learn
That she's April
that
O'Neil.
she's April O'Neil.
Except
Yeah.
a teenage April
She's
O'Neil.
a teenage April O'Neil who is working for the school newspaper or something, or wants to. Or
She
something.
has dreams of being a journalist.
Yes.
She wants to, as you say, she writes for the school paper. She wants to be a journalist when she leaves school, but she very quickly says that she doesn't want to appear in front of the camera.
Yes, we'll talk about that in a bit.
Yes, we will.
First thing is, immediately Leo is smitten with her. And this annoyed me. This is another little bit that was like, come on, do we have to do this?
I think
It doesn't
we do,
even go
because-
anywhere in the movie anyway. Just leave it out.
I think we do, because it's such a teen movie trope.
It might even be in Mutant Turtles movie trope. It
I
might be in some iteration of Turtles where,
I don't
even
think
though when we
so. I
watched
don't
last
think-
week, Raphael was, one of them was kind of goo-goo for April.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah, one of them was Michelangelo was like, whenever he saw her on TV, he was like, whoa, and then whenever
What a
Raphael was
babe.
hanging out with her, it
But-
was like a bit of...
But in this, it's very much a crush. And I don't think that's something I think previous adaptations have skittered around that,
Okay.
because ultimately they don't want the turtles to
They're
have any kind
they
of
are
romantic...
turtles and she's a human being. And this
Exactly.
doesn't make any sense to me. Even the attraction doesn't make sense.
It makes... yeah, but it's because they love everything about the real world. And
I guess.
And of course, and they're teenagers, so they're doing and experiencing teenage things, including teenage
The
crushes.
thing I loved about it, the thing that I just said I didn't like, the thing I loved about it was that she's not your typical... She's not kind of typical beauty, like a crush type,
No.
if you know what I mean. She's just kind of like her own person.
Yep.
And yeah.
She's not a cheerleader or...
No, exactly.
Well, she's... and she... Unlike, I think, most other iterations of... She's not a redhead.
No.
She's a person of colour.
Yep.
She's played by I've forgotten the actor's name. She's in The Bear.
Oh,
She
okay.
plays the...
Oh, yeah, right. The young
sous chef
cook.
in the-
Yeah.
in
Okay,
The
yeah.
Bear.
Yeah. I did not know that. Okay, while she's yelling at them for having hit her in the head with a ninja star,
Yeah, she's really...
her scooter gets stolen. So the turtles go to help her retrieve the scooter. It gets taken to this garage. They fight these guys in the garage.
Yep.
This is the first fight they've ever been in. They're like,
Yep.
they don't even know they can do
It's
it.
great. This fight is great. I just love. It's so frenetic.
Yeah.
It's so fast paced.
At one point, one of the bad guys gets in a car and starts driving around them, and one of them says, "He's Tokyo drifting around us."
Yeah, there's a lot of references.
Maybe every line of dialogue is a reference in this movie.
Yes.
Or every other line.
Yes.
Okay, so
Some of it was ad-libbed.
Okay, interesting.
Okay. There was definite ad-libbing going on. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about that.
Okay.
Seth Rogen's a big fan of ad-libbing, I think.
Okay, so they animated it afterwards to match the
Must have done.
movements. Okay.
Must have done.
Okay.
They would, and another thing they would do was to do dialogue recording in groups. So they would always have the.
That never happens.
Yeah.
Wow, that is interesting.
Yeah, they would.
That's almost unheard of.
Yeah, yeah. No, but apparently this is the way they wanted. Yeah, as you say, very unusual. But this is the way they wanted to do it because apparently the kids, especially who are voicing the turtles, had a really great chemistry.
Right.
And would just be doing teen stuff, like talking over one another. There's quite a few scenes where they're talking over one another or yelling over one another.
Yeah.
Seth Rogen said they were just doing it in the kitchen.
Right.
And he just thought, we have to get all these kids in and we have to record dialogue collectively. And that also encourages ad-libbing.
Right. So, besides April's Yellow Jacket, by the way, when they get in there and get in the car radio turns on and we hear Go Ninja Go, which is the Vanilla Ice song from Turtles 2.
Yes, it was.
So there's another pick from, like, the past, you know?
Yes.
Little pickup.
Oh, yeah.
So they beat these guys. April comes in. She's, like, shocked to learn that these are mutants that she's dealing with, not human beings.
Yep.
They tell her their whole story. They go up on the rooftop. They get some pizza from a place called Laird Pizza.
Oh, yeah, I missed that. Oh, my God. Of course.
We learn that she goes to Eastman High.
Yeah.
And she takes them to see the high school. Was it at this stage? She tells them about how she's working on the paper. She had this incident where she was in front of the camera. She got super nervous and she vomited in a crazy scene of projectile vomiting. It just goes on and it was memeified and all this kind of stuff. And
yeah, so she's a bit of a pariah because she spewed in front of the camera spectacularly.
Yeah. Really great bit of animation in there. It almost looks like a claymation kind of vomit. It's really great.
Yes.
So what stage did they go to high school? Visit her high school and look around. The only reason I want to...
It's a little later.
Okay.
Because they come up with their scheme first.
Oh, right. That's right. Okay, yes. So they scheme with her. She needs to get a big story so that people forget about her vomiting incident.
And the prom will be reactivated.
Yes. So the prom's been... Sorry. We never mentioned... There's a crime wave happening in the background. It's much like in...
Like in 1990, yeah.
There's a crime wave in the background where all this high-tech equipment is being stolen out of vans.
Yes.
Do they know the name of Superfly at this stage? I can't remember.
I think they do know Superfly, but no one knows who
it is. Yeah, that's right. They don't know who this mysterious Superfly figure is that's stealing this tech equipment. So, because of this, there's a curfew about to be imposed by parents in the city. Want a curfew so their kids are safe at home. Well, this crime is happening. There's another plot hole that's like, well, why would the kids be in danger if high-tech equipment is being stolen? But anyway.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
No.
Because it's the prom's gonna be cancelled, dudes.
Yes.
It's just like that Akira thing.
Yeah.
Remember the American Akira?
Yeah.
Like, what could be more... what would name a more iconic teen movie plot? Yeah. We have to save the prom.
So they're like, okay, well, we'll catch Superfly. We've had a fight. We've been in our first fight, so maybe we can pull this off. We'll catch Superfly, and she'll get her story. She'll cover the story. She'll get her headline, and she won't be known as Puke Girl anymore.
And everyone will love us, the Turtles, and we will get to go to high school.
And they can interact with human society. Yep. Yes, they will be loved. Beloved as heroes.
And Michelangelo is even signing up for things in the school. Yes. When they go to the school to meet with April to talk about their plan, she takes them to the dark room. I said, why is there a dark room? And I was watching this with Felix, my eldest, and he said, Dad, my school has a dark room.
Wow.
So there you go.
Okay.
Dark rooms are still around.
So they go to the school. The reason I'm hung up on the school is because Michelangelo goes up to a poster he goes up to the club bulletin board.
Yeah.
And he sees an improv club.
Yeah.
Was Michelangelo the one that was doing impressions in the 1990s?
Yes, he was.
He was the one doing the Jimmy Durante.
He's the goofy one.
Okay.
But here in this one, he's not goofy and he's not a surfer dude. His thing is that he does improv comedy.
Right. Gotcha.
And hilariously, he's signing up for the improv class.
Yes.
Right then.
Yes.
And they said, why are you signing up for that? It's not like we're enrolled. And he goes, yeah, but it's not till next month. We could be enrolled by then. Because that's how optimistic they are.
Yeah.
Because they're wide-eyed teens.
Yeah.
I just love it. And then they have this whole bit about their names. It's quite funny because they don't have last names and they're just like, oh, what are our last names? We don't have them. I guess I could be Michael Angelo.
By the way, neither of these versions, 1990 or 2023, explained why they're named after Renaissance artists.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Only the comic explains that. Anyway, so now we get a montage of them beating up. They've got these leads.
Yep.
And
well, it's April comes up with the leads.
That's right.
And then they go out and they beat up the underworld crims.
Yeah.
And each one gives them a name. They follow the name. This is a great kind of montage.
Yeah.
And the last bloke tells them that he's meeting Superfly that night under a bridge.
So
they're going to do the handover.
And I just want to mention the soundtrack at this stage. Okay. So during this montage, we get to hear No Diggity.
Yes.
In previous scenes, we've heard De La Soul, maybe Tribe Called Quest. These are songs for the parents in the audience.
I do want to talk about...
songs for... And some of these... even the Vanilla Ice gag is not for the kids in the audience.
No. I am going to talk about... I definitely want to come back to this, maybe at the end.
Yeah.
About... You're right. There's things in this film that are for the grown-ups.
Yes. And not in a way that the Pixar bits have grown-up bits. There's something different about this in the way it's just pulling from the 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s. It's just kind of all mixed up in there.
Yeah.
Okay, so...
Well, yeah, but maybe you have to be a certain age.
Yeah, maybe.
And I do want to return to that.
Okay. So they get the last lead tells them that they are supposed to steal and deliver some device to Superfly.
Well, what's happened is the last guy is going to make the handover tonight.
Yes.
He's already stolen the equipment.
Yeah.
Superfly has killed some of his guys in a previous scene.
Yeah.
And he's just giving Superfly the equipment, and then Superfly's going to leave him alone. And that's all he wants.
Yeah.
The turtles knock him out.
Yep. They're like, we'll drive that van down there with the equipment, and then we'll talk to Superfly.
They're going to whoop his butt, and then they're going to be heroes.
Yeah.
And April's there to film it.
That's right. That's right. So they show up at the meeting point. Superfly and his gang show up, and now we learn that Superfly is the mutant fly from the Baxter Stockman scene, and his gang is all mutants.
Yes.
They are the baby mutants.
Yes.
And Superfly is played by Ice Cube.
Allegedly signed up as soon as he heard he was going to be playing a character called Superfly.
We get his backstory about how his father, Baxter Stockman,
died, as far as he knows.
Yeah. And then how he had to raise his siblings.
That's right. And they also tried to integrate with the world, much as Turtles and Splinter did, and were similarly rejected.
Yes. So his backstory is basically, he's gotten Splinter's backstory from the comic, with like the dead master that he has to kind of avenge. It's been transferred over to Superfly. But a very interesting thing here is Superfly's big plan is revealed in this scene. Mm-hmm. He's going to build a device which will turn every creature on Earth into a mutant.
Yes. It's going to mutate every living thing,
yes,
with the exception of humans. Because humans are already humanoids.
Well,
it turns you into a humanoid, essentially, right?
Well, this is another plot hole. It's like, how does it distinguish between animals and humans?
Well,
how does an ooze, not the
pretty
laser?
Clearly, the mutation. It's not even ooze. It's going to do a field. It's never actually explained.
By the way, this is another. This goes back to my problem with the plot being a bit obvious. This is the same plot from X-Men 2001, where Magneto is building a big beam that's going to turn every human on Earth into a mutant. It's similar.
Right. Oh my god, it is exactly the same. Well, it's not similar. It's exactly the same.
But Magneto was not trying to turn. Well, sorry, Superfly's not trying to turn humans into mutants.
No,
he's leaving the humans to be either tortured or made games of, or the word he uses is enslaved. Which coming from... Now, we know this is the voice of Ice Cube, and to hear him say enslaved was... I don't know what to make of it, but it was interesting. And it also reminded me of, hearing Ian McKellen say, I'm going to turn everyone into a mutant. And we know he's a homosexual actor. And you're like, okay, this has a certain color to it if you know that. But you might not know that. Whereas I think we all know who Ice Cube is. And for him to say we're going to enslave humanity was... I don't have any comment on it. I just think that was an interesting choice.
Okay. Yeah.
But anyway,
as you said, the device it mutates everything except human beings. Because I suppose, as I said, the mutation, the ooze doesn't affect humans, presumably in this, or does it? I'm not sure. The ooze doesn't seem to affect humans. It turns things that aren't humans into humanoids.
That makes sense. Yes. Okay.
And I think his plan is later it kill all humans.
Yes.
At this point, he just wants they just want acceptance.
Yes.
He wants mutants to outnumber humans.
Yes.
So that they'll be accepted in a mutant society. As for what happens to the humans, he doesn't really care, but it's, as he said, it's not going to be good for them. Well, something bad will happen.
Yeah, he does care about toying with he describes all these kind of sports that he's going to like, blood sports.
He just throws out some suggestions. Maybe we'll keep them as pets. Maybe there'll be a TV show where we breed the redheads. It's just it actually is a bit. It's not important, and very quickly it becomes kill all humans.
Okay, so I want to say here we've got the X-Men dichotomy, which Stan Lee always used to say Professor X is MLK and Magneto is Malcolm X. This was
Did he really say that?
He used to say this. I don't know if I buy it or not, but it was kind of the way they were pushing. And they really, I think they leaned into that in the movies. Where one is like, well, we need peaceful resistance, and the other's like, no, we gotta fight with violence. Right. So we've got that here with Splinter and Superfly, where one is like, no, just stay out of the way. They don't want anything to do with us. And even more so later in the movie. But we've got that same kind of structure happening.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, so the Turtles are like, well, we don't want to help this guy, but they kind of have to play along because when they express reluctance, like we don't want to.
They're taken with him. They've gone bowling with him.
Yeah, they like him.
It's only
and all his mutant buddies become like their friends. They become family immediately because they've never met mutants before, obviously.
Yeah.
Some of the voices here are Paul Rudd.
Paul Rudd plays Mondo Gecko.
Rose Byrne is the crocodile.
Yes. John Cena is Rocksteady.
That's right, yeah. I didn't recognize that or realize it until I saw the credits.
Well, he's not in it a lot, and apparently he zoomed his dialogue in.
Oh, right, okay.
But interestingly, these people like Paul Rudd, Rose Byrne, these are people with whom Seth Rogen has appeared in other films.
Oh.
So the people with whom he has a personal...
What's the Rose Byrne one?
Neighbours.
Oh, right. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so again, this is people he knows.
Right. Gotcha. Okay. Okay, so they do like him, but then when they hear the plan about killing
all humans,
eating them even, they're like, no, we don't want him, but Superfly turns on them in a very tough guy way and is like, you better go along with it. They're like, okay. And they're like, well, we'll fake it until we can find our way out of this. They drive the van. They're like, we'll drive the van. They drive the van, then they have a revolt. And there's a big fight where the bad mutants are fighting the Turtles.
Yep.
Here comes another one of my favorite moments in the movie where Superfly crashes in the back door of the van and starts singing 6 in the Morning by Ice-T. Which is that album,
singing a song by
1987, that album, yeah, it's like Judas Priest doing an Iron Maiden cover. It was wild for me. When I saw this in the cinema, I almost jumped out of my seat because I listened to that album on repeat. When I was 15, I was listening to Ice-T, those first 3 albums, nonstop. And it just blew my mind that this line was in this movie. I was like, who is this movie for, though?
Who is this movie
for? Who is this movie for?
Good
I was like, this movie's for me?
Yes.
That line was in there for me. That line, that Ice-T line, recited by Ice Cube.
I do want to come back to that question, Kumar.
Yeah. So they, at some stage, okay, so they get captured by the corporation TCRI.
The evil mutants make a getaway with the equipment.
That's right, yes.
And the Ninja Turtles are left to seemingly take the rap, but it's not the cops.
It's TCRI.
It's TCRI, Techno Chaos Research Institute or whatever it was.
Oh, did they say what it stood for?
Yeah, I think they did at one point.
Okay,
yeah.
But it wasn't interdimensional, whatever it was from the comic.
Although, the antagonist, the female antagonist, Cynthia Utrom.
Yeah.
Utrom is the name of the alien species.
Oh, that's clever.
The
Very clever. Okay. Played by Maya Rudolph, I believe.
That's right.
Okay, so she captures them. She actually starts milking them. It's great.
It's so good.
Yeah. She's actually milking the ooze out of them. She's trying to collect like a massive amount of the mutagen ooze.
Well, I think she's really bleeding them, but But instead, she says milking, and they say milking because all their lives they've been warned about milking. And then when Splinter shows up to rescue them,
The machine actually says Milker
They're
2000
trying
on
not to let him know that they've been in the milking machine. And then April says, "But the machine says Mega Milker 3000."
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, they're milking you! I told you!"
So April goes to, as you mentioned, so when they're captured, April is not with them. So she goes to Splinter, and Splinter comes to TCRI.
I've written, how did April know where to find them?
Yeah.
But again, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Splinter...
In the comics, it's a giant building that has TCRI on the top, so
Well,
it would
of
have been
course,
easier.
but how did she know that they... Oh, maybe she saw the vans maybe had TCRI on them.
Maybe.
And she's pretty plugged into news.
Yes.
Anyway, but your point is, it doesn't matter, and I completely agree.
Yeah.
Because this is just... This movie, it doesn't matter. It's just it's just a wild ride.
Yeah.
In this scene, Splinter, I think, straight up kills a guy. He seems to stab one through the helmet with a taser.
Yeah.
But this is a great scene where Splinter, played by Jackie Chan, is doing some Jackie Chan style.
Reminded me of the Yoda fight from the second Star episode 2.
Oh, no, it didn't remind me of that at all.
Count Dooku
To me, it
lightsaber
was,
fight a little bit.
he hurt his back.
Just because this old guy, oh yeah.
He hurt his back at one point, and he's running around like with a crick in his back.
Yeah. That's actually a Jackie Chan move.
Yeah.
In a Jackie Chan movie, he would be hurt and running around
Yes.
holding his back.
And I have information relevant to this discussion. They deliberately
Right.
based this scene off
Yeah.
Jackie Chan style, possibly even before they signed Jackie Chan on. Because this is, I read it in an interview I read with Jeff Rowe called TMNT Mutant Mayhem Director Talks Needle Drops, Sequel Teasers and Fixing a Broken Movie from last August. He strongly hints that he was already watching, he wanted comedy action and or comedy kung fu action.
Yeah.
And who's the comedy kung fu
That's
action guy?
Yeah.
There's only one guy.
Yeah.
It's Jackie Chan. He was watching it and already thinking of making the air action sequences like that. And then hiring Jackie Chan is almost a moot point. Then you just kind of gotta.
Yeah.
And they asked him, and he said, "Yeah."
He did voices in Kung Fu Panda.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
was
he has
Monkey, I
form.
think. Yeah.
He does voice acting now. I guess that's what he mostly does because he's getting on. He's not really
I
doing
feel
kung
like
fu
he
anymore.
might have. I really wondered how he read his lines because there are some errors in English which are Jackie Chan errors, like you was this, that kind of thing. I'm like, was he reading off a script or was he?
I reckon. I'm sure it was deliberate by them. I'm sure it was.
Did they actually write the errors into
I'm sure
the
they
script?
did. They're fans. They
Sure.
probably knew exactly what sequences those YouTube videos were from. If it was Snake and Eagle Shadow or
Yeah.
Young Master.
Yeah. So they.
Oh, yeah.
So he rescues them.
Yeah.
They go to the Superfly's base.
They know where it is because they were told in
Yep.
an earlier scene. But even if they hadn't known, it doesn't really matter.
Doesn't matter. They're putting the finishing touches on this beam that's gonna mutate all the animals in the world, I guess, or whatever. They come in and the turtles convince the mutants that this is not the path to go down.
Yeah, the mutants, they don't really want to
They don't really want to hurt
murder
people.
humankind.
Yeah.
They just want to be part of, again, they want to be part of the world.
Yeah.
But Superfly, he has daddy issues. Baxter Stockman was killed by humans.
Yeah.
Maybe, or maybe he was killed by aliens.
Yeah.
And he definitely wants revenge more than he wants, I think, acceptance. And Splinter sort of sees a bit of himself in him because he's insisting he knows what's best.
Well,
His
yeah,
children
he had
just
told
need
them,
to
I
fall
think
in
when he
line.
rescued them, he said, he's really angry at them for what they've been doing, of
Yeah.
course. They've been out fighting and stuff, and he's like, if you listen to me...
The only way for you to be safe and happy
Is if you
to
listen
do
to me.
exactly what I tell you,
if you listen
all
to
the
me.
time.
Yeah, if you listen
And
to me,
then
that's right.
Superfly says it word for word.
Word for word, it's the same thing to his mutants.
Again, it's
When they rebel against him and join the Turtles.
it's pretty cliched stuff, but it's fine. It's fine. This movie runs on cliches because I think that's the appeal.
Yeah. So they have a big fight. Now, I could just tell from the way this fight was staged that it was not going to be the final battle.
Right.
I was just like, something about the camera setup, quote unquote camera setup, the low
What else
angle.
can you call it? I mean,
I don't know, but yeah. So it's just like the angles they were depicting things from. I was just like, this isn't the final battle. There's going to be some big thing after this. There's going to be, your Stay Puft
Skybeam.
Marshmallow Man thing. It's going to. I could feel it, and that was another thing that was like a little bit on the disappointment end of the scale.
there
for
was
me
20
because it was
minutes
just-
left in the runtime as well.
Oh
so
yeah,
I kinda
yeah.
knew
You're
that
like, yeah. Okay, this is because he falls into
it's the ocean.
Superfly falls into like the ocean with the machinery and the ooze or whatever, and they're like I'm like, this isn't the end, obviously.
And it goes off, and Superfly turns into I guess what you
An amalgamation
would call
of...
a Lovecraftian horror.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's a combination of himself, a whale. He falls into a zoo and picks up all the animals in the zoo that form his limbs.
Yeah.
His feet are horses.
Yes. Bunches of horses.
No, not just like one horse, but they're horses all clumped together to make huge, enormous feet, like elephant's feet.
I will say, like...
There's a Clive Barker story that's kind of like this. Have you read it?
Yes, that's right. In the hills, what's it called? In the hills and the plains or something.
I was feeling for those horses.
Yeah.
Because they were getting crushed.
Yeah, I thought so too. But, so, yet again, I was complaining about the scene before. Oh no, we've got a big battle after it's not the final battle. Actually, it was entertaining the whole way through it. And I'll tell you why. Things happen in here that are crazy, like when they shoot the anti-ooze gun at him and one horse falls out of his foot, a single horse, and Superfly's like, I didn't need that horse anyway.
Superfly's constantly talking.
Yeah.
He's just got a constant patter going. So of course the Chekhov's anti-mutant gun, lucky we were told in the very first scene what these guns do.
Yeah.
Because they use it, but unfortunately, as I said, it only restores a single horse that kind of plops out of his body and runs off.
Yeah.
So they get a plan. They know about how to do the plan from Attack on Titan, of which I think Donatello is a fan.
Yes, we got that. It was established in the
he likes
high school
anime.
scene. Yeah.
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 They have to look on its neck for the weak point, and sure enough, that's where the blowhole of the whale is that now makes up most of Superfly's body. And in the blowhole, we can see bubbling ooze. So they know if they can get the canister of anti-mutant serum, which is glowing blue, in there, it will, quote-unquote, go in his bloodstream, the bloodstream of 50 different animals, and then it will demutantize him.
Yes. And they're driving around through this battle in a pizza van. Which is, I guess, the cartoon
like
version
the
they had.
VW.
The toys, they were driving around in a pizza van, at least, if not the cartoon, which I'm sure they did in the cartoon as well.
In the cartoon, they sort of had a turtle van. It had turtle...
Oh.
It had turtle shells on it.
So in the comic, they had...
The VW...
April's van, which became a news van, and I think in some version...
Probably.
Oh, no, well, in the movie...
But in 1990, it was still a VW van.
That's right.
Yeah. Which was cool.
Was it a news van in that? Anyway.
No. It was just her van. It was just a Volkswagen van.
So meanwhile, the news is like mutants are attacking the city, and they got pictures of turtles. So it's gone the opposite way what they wanted. But April gets in there.
Why would they choose the turtles out of all the crazy shit that's going on?
Don't know.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. April gets in there. She corrects them, and then the news starts calling them mutant hero turtles, which I think is a nod to the UK version of mutant turtles.
Of course it is.
I think even that version gets a bit of a nod in this movie. So they pull off the plan, finally. They manage to get the thing in there, it doesn't really matter. And then it ends with basically they told the other mutants, the bad mutants, that you can come live with us.
Yeah.
A bit like Sloth in Goonies. You can just come live with us. And...
Yeah.
And so in the last scene, we see that all the mutants are living in the sewer with the turtles. It's a bit like, I imagine, like Turtles' Toys. Almost like what it's...
That's exactly what it's like.
Yeah. So all these
You've got the sewer base, assume there was a sewer base, playset, and you've just got them all hanging out.
Yeah. So they're all the mutants are hanging out there together, and the kids are going to go, the turtles are going to go for their first day of high school.
Yeah.
And then they're
doing all sorts of, we see sort of like a montage, they're just doing teen things. They're wearing clothes.
Yeah.
Michelangelo is wearing...
Initially, when they leave the sewer, it was really funny, because as they were leaving to go to school, they had their school clothes on, but they were still wearing their masks.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why? But then they didn't have them in the school. Once they got to school, the masks were gone.
There was yeah, that's right. There's a moment, actually. They leave wearing their masks, and they drop them back into the sewer as they leave. And Splinter watches that.
Okay.
He sees the masks fall down, and then he's...
Symbolically important.
Symbolic.
Okay, gotcha.
Incidentally, Splinter is reconciled to the human world because after April announces that it's the hero turtles, not the villain turtles.
Oh, yeah.
Humankind, or the citizens of New York, rally around...
During the fight.
Yes.
It's a bit like the scene in Spider-Man 2 in the train or the subway where all the citizens come and help Spider-Man out when he's knocked out.
Yeah, when,
a little bit like that.
when
So like
Doc
all the
Ock's
people come
trying to-
together
yeah.
because Splinter sees this human approaching him and thinks he's going to attack.
Gets all these flashbacks to when he was a rat.
Voiced by
or
Kevin Eastman.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yep. I've got a quote here. In the interview I mentioned before, the interviewer asked the director, I saw Kevin Eastman's name, but I didn't see what his character credit was. Where's he at? And Jeffro answers, he's the human that helps Splinter up at the end. He helps him out. And we wanted that to be something meaningful to the franchise. And we were so happy Kevin was willing to do that. Because as you pointed out, he's not involved with Turtles anymore. I'm appreciative, you'll love this, I'm appreciative of the Stan Lee cameos in Marvel films, and it felt like a great way to honour him and the beautiful gift he has given the world.
Great. Love it. So Splinter's okay with humans. The Turtles are going to university. Leo asks...
High school, they're
High school,
they're in high school, they're 15.
What did I say university?
You did say university,
Sorry, I
that's
did.
right.
Why did I say that? Bizarre. Anyway, yeah, they're 15. Leo asks April to the prom. She says yes, but they're like as friends. And then we get
Cynthia Utrom has a fly in a sample.
this is post mid-credits scene.
This is the mid-credit scene, right. There's a fly buzzing around in a kind of like a transparent case in a tube. That's presumably Superfly, been brought down to normal by the serum.
Yep.
And she says, well, she's watching footage of the turtles on television, presumably. And she says, well, finding them's not going to be a problem, but I want them, but capturing them, that might be another matter. So contact the Shredder.
Yes, and then we get a
ominous silhouette.
Yeah, we had a view
Of a
the
cheese
cityscape,
grater,
Yeah, the cheese
shaped
grater.
like a man.
Just the shoulder, yeah. The shoulder of the cheese grater, yeah.
Great.
Yeah, yeah. So he's like an assassin, I guess, in this version, a bounty hunter of some
Who
sort.
knows? We'll find out in 2026.
I was wondering if there was going to be a...
The sequel was greenlit last July.
Okay.
Jeff Rowe will be returning to direct, and Seth Rogen's production company will be making it again.
Okay.
Along with Nickelodeon, presumably. Also, we're going to get a animated TV series, yet another one, called Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which will premiere this year, apparently.
I think that was the name of one of the comic series. I think it was a reprint series.
Oh, okay.
I think.
Oh, but the fact that
there was a series...
the title's a reference to something doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. And by the way, in the end credits, it says based on characters created by Kevin Eastman, Peter Laird, much as the 1990 credits. So it doesn't say based on the comic book by...
Wouldn't surprise me if that was a reference too. Everything.
Oh
in this
yeah,
movie
that's
is
a good point. It
reference.
could have been a reference as opposed to a deliberate, like, let's
to
not
some
mention
sort of
comic
legal.
books.
Yeah, I would say far more likely to be the former than the latter. Why would this film care about comic book movies are big now?
That's
you're
true.
Comic books into your film.
That's true,
now.
because Jiu-Jitsu was like, well, we got to make this based on a comic book.
It's a comic book
to sell it.
Says, this is based on a comic book.
Yeah.
You know those Marvel movies you love?
Yeah, exactly.
Watch Jiu-Jitsu. Yeah, there's no reason not to mention it.
Yeah. Okay, there we are now. I guess it's trivia time.
Yes, let's do some trivia. I don't have a lot of trivia because it just came out. The movie's budget was $70 million US. Its box office take $180.5 million. So respectable. Not comparable to the 1990 film, which made over $200 million in 1990
against the Golden Harvest budget.
Yeah, against whatever that was, 12 million, 16 million, or whatever it was. So not the huge runaway success, but quite successful enough to get a sequel. Well, they'd already decided on doing the sequel before they even released the film. The film might not have done as well as it could have for a number of reasons. It didn't do really well in China. Only made $300,000 there, apparently.
$300,000?
Something like that. Or maybe that was just the opening day.
You know what? I'm going to say, I think it would be impossible to translate in a way that is close to...
That's true.
That mimics the English.
Also,
or dub. or even dub.
Yeah. And also, I think this film wouldn't make sense to a Chinese audience, I think. I think This has a very specific audience in mind, which we will very shortly get to.
Okay.
Very shortly get to. There was another draft of this, an earlier draft.
Okay.
So, which featured Shredder, and the Turtles were actually going to be in high school.
Okay.
So it was going to be set in the high school, and Shredder was going to be the villain.
Okay.
So pretty much after their origin story's been established, apparently on page 30 of the script, about half an hour in, they were going to be in high school.
Right.
And they just couldn't make it work. Kind of for obvious reasons. How do you give the Turtles everything they want 30 minutes into your movie? And they just threw it away and started from scratch. And that's how we got Mutant Mayhem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say this movie works pretty well for a movie that has like 5 listed screenwriters and then 4 listed story credit.
It's not usually a good sign.
No, it's
Many
usually a bad
books
sign.
usually spoil the bride.
And also, usually I believe the Writers Guild only allows a maximum of 2 names listed to quote-unquote protect the integrity of the craft.
Well, it's...
So they might have...
What was the specific crediting? Was it... Someone wrote... 2 people wrote the script and then the rest have story
it was like
credits?
5. It was like 5 and 4.
Was it story credits and script?
It was like 5 script credits and 4 story credits, I think, or something.
Okay.
It was a lot of names. Some of them repeated names. I mean, like Seth Rogen on story and script, Evan Goldberg story and script, but it was like a lot on both ends of it. Yeah.
As we said, the toy line was a big inspiration for this film, perhaps the biggest of the lot. In the interview I mentioned earlier, the interviewer asks Jeff Rowe about toy inspirations. He says, I noticed at the end when the turtles were wearing human clothes, I was curious, is Mikey's Hawaiian shirt specifically inspired by Beachcomber Mikey, the action figure?
Okay.
To which Jeff Rowe replied, 100%.
Whoa! Holy cow! That is crazy.
I should also point out at this moment that Kamara's wearing what looks like a Hawaiian shirt.
It is. It's got like...
Oh, it's got the Hawaiian Islands on it.
Hawaiian Islands on it by name.
The literal definition of a Hawaiian shirt.
And the literal definition of coincidence, because I was not planning that. It might have been subconscious.
They go on to ask him, are there any other sneaky toy Easter eggs in there to be spotted? He replies, at one point Mondo Gecko has a roller skate on his tail, which the toy presumably had. There's the TCRI environment. We really tried to make that look like the Technodrome toy.
Oh, right.
That was the big... That was like the He-Man's Castle Grayskull of the Ninja Turtles toy line.
Yeah.
If you had the Technodrome, you had rich parents. He says, it's not a toy thing specifically, but when the turtles get electrocuted in TCRI, we do the 2D bone silhouette thing from the video game.
Oh!
Which I assume means the arcade game.
The game that's impossible to finish. One of the most... all video games were hard in that era, but that game was notoriously impossible.
I forgot to mention this last week, but that arcade game was a huge deal for me.
Right.
And when our local video store got the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade game, there was a line in front of it.
Awesome.
All the time.
I love it.
All the time.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to play this game.
Yeah.
And I remember,
but I don't understand why the line was there, because you died pretty quick in that game, as I recall. You couldn't last very long.
You really do. Well, it was bigger kids. I was quite young.
Yeah, right.
And then at one time, I remember, I'm not sure how appropriate this story is, but I used to go into that video store a lot. And one time I went there, I think probably on a Saturday, with, I think, my mate. And there was no one there. And I ran all the way home. Told my dad, Dad, there's no bogans around the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game. Can I have 20 cents, please? He gave me 20 cents. I ran all the way back, played it, died in 30 seconds.
Wow. Yep, there you go.
It was really hard, but man, it's so thrilling. That game, it was such a big deal. Alright, on to the topic I've been teasing all recording, and that is the question, who is this movie for? First, a short anecdote. I didn't watch this movie alone, as I mentioned earlier. I watched it with my teenage son, my eldest, Felix, who's almost 15 years old. Felix is very cool. Much cooler than I was when I was his age. And Felix really didn't like this movie at all. He found it to be very insincere, as he put it.
Okay.
He didn't relate at all to the cool references that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were constantly coming off with. They're using words like a Riz for charisma.
Yep.
One of them says, I will never get to see BTS IRL.
Yep.
BTS, the Korean K-pop band.
Yep.
Felix audibly groaned when that line was delivered.
Yep.
Plenty of other examples. Maybe the Tokyo Drift line, I'm not sure. So, I love this film. You love this film.
Yeah.
But the teenager in the room didn't love
Now,
this
I
film.
watched it with my 16-and-a-half-year-old last night, and he gave it 4 stars on Letterboxd out of 5.
Excellent. So
And he quite liked it. Now, I have a
I'd be
feeling...
happy to go with the majority rule here, but I feel like I've received a critique. I have to take it on board.
Of course. Now, last time I saw this movie a year ago at the cinema, at the preview screening, it was with a crowd of families, because it was a free preview that people got tickets to in some manner. It was grown-ups, kids, everybody seemed to enjoy it. What do I know? It was just I'm just trying to read the room in a vague way. And it seemed like people enjoyed it. I didn't see, it didn't seem to be a lot of groaning or whatever.
No, of course not.
But, okay.
But the question here is, who is this movie for?
Yes, now, okay, so
who
I'm going to
made
say...
the movie?
Here's what I'm going to say. I consumed this... I have a feeling that Ashwin consumed this the same way I did, which is that Some references you don't even get. I remember the Riz line, I was trying to remember, I was racking my brains. What does that mean again? I was like, I think I used to know what that word means.
Charisma.
Yeah, so like there was stuff that just, I was skipping past. A lot of the musicians, like when they talk about Adele or blah, 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 I was just like, whatever. But then we get Ice-T.
Yes.
Or then we get some De La Soul music or something like that. It's just like...
Well, yeah. So, as we said, I know exactly how old Seth Rogen is because I looked up the age of the 5 screenwriters.
Okay.
Right? Or the credited writers, both for story and screenplay. Yeah. Seth Rogen is 41. Jeff Rowe is 37. That's the director. Evan Goldberg, 41. The other 2 credited screenwriters who wrote Detective Pikachu, Dan Hernandez and Benji Samit, they are 40 and 39 respectively.
Okay.
So this film is written by middle-aged men.
Yeah.
The music you mentioned. There's a lot of cool music in this.
Yep.
But it's also very much classic hip-hop.
Yep.
So hip-hop from the late 80s, early 90s. At one point they sing 4 non-blondes.
Yes.
You remember?
Featured heavily, yeah.
And then when the action kicks off, it transitions from 4 non-blondes to a famous cover of 4 non-blondes, which is a famous internet meme.
Okay.
Not famous enough, obviously, because you don't know it. It's He-Man singing 4 non-blondes.
Oh, right.
It has a special name.
But I thought that He-Man video was just animation of He-Man with the actual song on it.
No.
Oh, it's a different...
It's like... No, it's silly. It's very, very silly.
Okay.
Santa try sometimes
Right. Okay.
I know that video is Hey Ya 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 Ya, because that's what it's called on YouTube.
Okay.
But it actually has another name, like an
Okay.
official name, because it was actually made by an animation studio.
Oh, okay.
Who they had to track down to use it.
Okay.
So, this meme came out in 2005.
Okay.
And was big maybe a couple of years later, kind of went viral a couple of years later, 2008, 2009. And you'll be unsurprised to hear that it was Seth Rogen's suggestion to put it in the film.
Okay.
So far, so good. Also, to put the Ninja Rap song in by Vanilla Ice, that was also Seth Rogen's suggestion.
So I want to address one thing, which one of Felix's complaints about it being insincere because of all the non-stop references. I think this is the curse of turtles, and I hinted at it last week. So, because they're teenagers, so in the comic book, I mentioned that they talk about this race car driver, this American race car driver, and I didn't know who it was, I had to Google it. Maybe 15-year-olds in 1984 cared about this person. Maybe. But I was like, now, who's this guy? 1990 version we watched, and I was like, there was a bunch of references there. I was like, this is so 1990, and I presume all the other iterations have had references to current things that are going to date 5 years later.
You're right.
But I would say this version, is the closest to quote-unquote timeless because it spans the 80s references. It's not just the Adele and BTS, it's all the stuff.
I haven't explained properly. I think Felix's problem is more that it's old people trying to be hip with the kids.
Oh, gotcha.
So
but were those kids ad-libbing in the booth?
Of course. I've read they were ad-libbing.
So maybe they didn't write BTS IRL in the script and the kids said it in the booth.
They could well have done, but it's equally likely that came from Seth Rogen.
Sure, yes.
And who am I to know? All I know is I love the movie that another middle-aged man wrote.
Yes.
Or 5 other middle-aged people my age who saw all the things I like, who know East Coast hip-hop the way I know East Coast hip-hop.
Yes.
Who know this meme from 05.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah.
Who am I to judge how sincere or insincere their references to current teen lingo is? However, the fact that Ashwin liked it makes me think it can't be that bad. And that it's...
I don't know, sometimes his taste is a bit similar to mine, so maybe...
Sure. But I think... So, the question, again, to return to, who is this movie for? I think this movie's for everyone.
I agree. I think they tried to make it for...
But this movie is very much by people that get the references that you and I get. Look,
so I think it's... Everybody gets, let's say, 20% of the references. Let's say every generation would get 20%. So your 15-year-olds would get a certain amount, 25s, 35s, 45s would all get a certain amount of references. Nobody's going to get all of them.
We're not getting 100% because of that teenage stuff, Not even us.
This is a TikTok movie, for sure. Like, it was TikTok generation stuff. I thought, but at the same time, it was like Ferris Bueller. Now, this is another example, because Ashwin has seen Ferris Bueller multiple times.
Yep.
But I don't know how much other kids have watched or even know what they're watching, necessarily, if their parents aren't, like... film buffs or whatever that make their kids sit down
and watch their kids watch the
Ferris
movies
Bueller.
that they liked in the 80s.
So
Ashwin might be an outlier is what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't say
Even the fact that, look,
this movie's
the
for
clips
everyone,
from...
but I know very much who it's by.
Right.
Because it's all through the film who it's by.
Yeah.
For the record, Marius saw it at cinemas and really liked it and watched it again last night.
Okay.
So if you're a kid, you dig it.
Right. That's interesting, too. Because they say that the way marketing works for kids, you have to pitch like 5 years older. So like things that have 17-year-old characters in it is for 12-year-olds.
Okay. Yeah. Right.
So that kind of
Or
adds
maybe
up.
Mazi's an outlier too.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Shall we? That was interesting. Very rambling discussion there. But I think it was good. All right. Shall we do our votes? Comic is the same as last week.
Yeah,
it's yay.
we'll skip that this week. Yeah, it's yay. So the movie this week, obviously yay for me.
Yeah.
A lot of plot holes and plot cliches, which didn't ultimately bother me because they just entertain me through the cliches anyway.
I agree, and would even go a step further and say the cliches are the point.
Right.
Because it's really leaning into the
teen acceptance trope.
The teen experience.
Movie. Yes.
The teen movie tropes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
And of course it looks fantastic.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And it's really funny.
And again, watching it twice, and it's the same with Lego. Like, every time, I'm like, I cannot believe I'm seeing this. That these visuals are happening in my eyes.
Really visually impressive.
Stunning. Yeah.
And even there were some themes, even some nice themes.
Yeah.
The themes of parenthood, and even I've seen this one online of the Teenage Mutant Turtles as being kind of like first generation immigrants.
Yeah, right.
With
I think Splinter is the first generation.
Yeah, well, he's the second
Let me
generation.
speak to this from first-hand experience.
Yeah.
The overprotective immigrant parent of the culture that they've moved into, they're like, whoa, do not interact with those people. Yeah, that's a good take on this movie, actually. Yeah.
Adaptation.
So, I'm going to probably contradict myself from all the previous adaptation votes, but I'm going to say yay, because I think the elements, let's say the elements of the comic are not precious, and even Eastman knew that. He's like, this is just a joke based on Daredevil comics and Wolverine and X-Men and Teen Titans comics. It's not, you've got Mutant Turtles, you've got this Master, you've got the Enemy. We ripped all these things off from other places anyway, so my feeling is if they're all in this movie in some form, they're not in the same form. I think Splinter's personality is very different, but does it matter? Splinter was just a joke in the original. He was a joke cliche of the Yoda type, the old Master type.
So he's Splinter because he's based on Stick. He's like a splinter off the stick.
That's right. That's right. So why does it matter if you change that? I don't think anybody is that precious about the comics that they would be like, no, this is a violation for that super. In fact, I think this is like, it's like your Batman Begins or your Skyfall, where you've been a fan of this thing and then suddenly a version comes along that's like, oh my god, this is what it was in my mind the whole time almost. So
that's awesome.
I think it's a great adaptation in that respect.
I'm so glad you said that, because I'm going to say yay for the complete opposite reason.
Okay.
I mean, I've said in the past, or we've discussed in the past, how any adaptation kind of exists in a state of creative tension between two forces, right? The force of accuracy and the force of transformation, say. So you've got transformation on one hand and you've got replication, say, on the other. And any adaptation exists in the nexus between those two things. And you can't have one without the other. You can't replicate an element of something in an adaptation without transforming it in some way, shape or form, because you're moving it to another medium. And you can't transform it without replicating some part of the original, because then it's not if you didn't, it wouldn't be an adaptation. It would just be something completely different. So it has to have both, and it always has both. Having said that, I feel like between the two of us, you come down more on the side of accuracy as being the determinant of a good adaptation.
That is true.
And I come down more on the side of transformation as a personal preference. Which is ironic, really, because of the two of us, you're the more creative one. And I'm much less so. But I guess that's just what makes us such a great podcast. Having said that, I vote yay for this film because I consider it to be transformation and improvement in action.
Yeah.
This, I think, is the adaptation of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that is the most different from the source material, I think.
Right.
I really think so. Even more than the the original cartoon.
Yeah.
It takes that single word, which I mentioned earlier of the four, teenage, which has always been the least important, and spins it into the most important.
Yes.
They are teenagers before anything else. Splinter, as you say, is completely different. Deeply unserious, goofy, daggy dad.
Yeah.
April isn't even an adult anymore. She's a teenage kid now. The same age as them.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, it's still very much Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles because that setting is the same.
Yeah.
The concept of the mutated turtles living in a sewer who have to come, who move into the world and experience the ups and downs of interacting with a world that they're not naturally a part of. The setting and the concept, I think that's the enduring success of Ninja Turtles and why it's been adapted so many times and continues being adapted so many times, is because that setting and concept is so compelling.
Yeah.
So, and yet this is the one that's moved furthest away from that original comic book.
I think there's two other forces at play here against each other.
Yeah.
One is that the comic had to sell 3,000 copies.
Right.
To sell out. This one had to sell to millions and millions and millions of people to break even, right? Or to make a profit. So there had to be a transformation. Even with the cartoon, they need to sell a lot of millions.
It has to broaden.
You have to broaden the audience. This is such an interesting case because the comic was specifically for a niche market, which was comic book readers in 1984. And not only that, the niche, within that niche of people that were familiar with Daredevil and X-Men and that stuff and would get the jokes. That was such a tiny audience of 3,000 people, maybe 9,000 after the second printing, that there was no way, if you're going to adapt this for whatever reason, you got to turn it this mass market thing. And I think this is a mass market thing in a way that's not offensive to what it was originally. And maybe there are some parodic elements in it, in the way there were in the original comic as well. So that's another yay for adaptation.
Yeah, good point. That's a yay for me.
Okay. So please like, subscribe, rate and review on whatever your platform is. Please join us on Patreon at patreon.com/comicbookmovieoblivion, all one word. We need your assistance to help keep the lights on and buy books and DVDs and things and pay the podcasting hosting fees because the episodes are so long that we need this to go for the deluxe package. As I've mentioned before.
That's right.
And was there... Oh yeah, join us on Facebook. And I think that's about it.
Right, if you catch us in a mistake, make sure you write us a letter.
Yes, we are
on that note,
begging for correction letters.
Please do. On that, otherwise, it's up to us to spot if we make a mistake. As I did last week. Last week, I think I said that Doug Jones was not allowed to attend the premiere of the first Hellboy 2004. I was misremembering. I was thinking of Howard the Duck, the actor from Howard the Duck. Both the voice actor and the actor in the costume were not allowed to attend the premiere of Howard the Duck. And Doug Jones, as far as I know, probably did go to the premiere, but it was the voice actor that played Abe Sapien in that film who, in solidarity with Doug Jones' performance, refused to attend that premiere.
Yeah, and nobody emailed us about this to tell us we were wrong.
What's wrong with you? I had to figure that out myself.
Every podcast I listen to, they talk about the angry emails they get from people about stuff they said that was wrong. And often I'm listening to a podcast and it's like, that's not right. And I feel like emailing.
And you are that angry emailer.
I am that guy, so please
send
us a message of some sort.
Don't commit auto-cannibalism on his own podcast. Write to us.
Yeah. Okay, next week we're going to do Baba Yaga from 1973, based on the Valentina comic book series by Guido Crepax. He's an Italian, kind of erotic cartoonist a little bit.
Awesome.
There was a Valentina TV series. We'll talk about all that stuff next week. I've been looking forward to this one for a long time. I have not seen the movie. I have read a bit of Crepax's comics. He's a bit of a legend in the industry. So
excellent. Can't wait.
Look forward to that.